Hello and welcome to a look at The King of Chicago, a game that was developed by Master Designer Software and released through their Cinemaware label. In order to set up this video, I technically don't need to, but I want to give a bit of background information. January 17th, 1920. For some bizarre reason, the US Congress decided that now was a very, very good time to give criminals a license to print money.
Didn't you ever hear of Prohibition?
Height of it? What do you think paid for this house?
Known as the Volstead Act, it intended to prevent the production, importation, sale, and consumption of booze on a nationwide level. And even though we have history as a reference point, it doesn't take much intelligence to realize that that was probably not a great idea. The king of Chicago at the time, or the king of the underworld, was quite happy with just leaving things as they were. He had fallen madly in love with a young lady and would rather spend this time with her instead of looking for potential opportunities. So he invited his nephew, Johnny Torrio, to tend shop while he was busy spending the time with his love interest. And of course, Torrio brought in his own right-hand man, a certain individual known as Alphonse Capone. Not only did that Volstead Act give the criminals a license to print money, it also encouraged them to get organized because, of course, supplying illegal booze was quite an endeavor, and only by being organized could the various different gangs hope to supply the amount of booze required to satisfy the thirsty population. Initially, everything was fine and dandy. Chicago was divided into 4 sections where the different groups, let's call them groups, could operate without stepping on each other's toes, but to cut a very, very long story short, obviously that couldn't last, and eventually the gang started having infights. When Al Capone arranged a Tommy gun induced staff reduction of the North Side's gang, he made Chicago a bit too hot for himself and intentionally got himself arrested in faraway Philadelphia on a gun-carrying charge. But of course, as bad luck would have it, while that was occurring, certain people decided to read his ledgers and discovered that they couldn't nail him for having earned this money illegally, but they could nail him for not paying tax of that illegally earned money, which is both hilarious and hypocritical at the same time. Al Capone being out of the picture, of course, left a certain power vacuum in Chicago's underworld, and that is where this game starts. Remember, Al Capone was in charge of the south side of Chicago, and the character you play is part of the north side of Chicago, and his hopes and dreams and intentions is to become the king of Chicago. Your character's boss, known as the Old Man, is a bit battered after the bruising that he took in the conflict with Al Capone, and he has lost the desire to be decisive, and your character, Pinky Callahan, decides that fresh blood is required, and eventually takes over control of the north side, with the intention of expanding to the west side, to the loop, and then finally take over the south side, thereby becoming the king of Chicago. Pinky Callahan can't do all these things by himself, alone, of course. So he interacts with very different characters, some of them on his side of the turf, and most of them on the opposing sides of the different turfs. And by interacting with them in various different ways, he will try to exert his influence over them, whether it's by being friendly, by bribing them, by threatening them, or by outright killing them. Whatever it takes to reach the throne, that is all that matters. And it sort of is a bit of a double-edged sword, because it becomes very, very obvious very early on in this particular game that you can't trust anyone. Loyalty is such a fickle thing when it comes to power struggles, and while someone may appear to be a friend, there's no guarantee that that individual is your friend, and that is something that is looming over the game at all times. But that is famously something I will come back to later in the video. Essentially, the game is running in a pseudo turn-based kind of mode, where you are given options to interact with various different individuals in various different ways, either through speech bubbles that you need to click on from Pinky Callahan, or the office desk where you make the choice for that month. You have the choice to check the ledger to see how the businesses are going, how much money you're gaining, and how much money you're spending on various different things. That will not end the turn. But then you can choose to kick back. You can choose to go and visit your girlfriend, or you can choose to try and expand your influence over another section of Chicago. And the decisions you make at any given point will have a branching option. You can try and be nice, you can try and be harsh, you can try and appease your girlfriend, and you can try and take over an area of Chicago by various different means. And depending on how you have accumulated fickle loyalty and or money and or men, you will have various different options to go through with your idea in various different ways. All of them having the potential to backfire at one point or another. But again, that is something I will come back to later on. From a graphical point of view, considering the fact that this game is a game from 1987, I both like and dislike the graphics at the same time. The general settings of graphics, I think, is fine, but particularly the faces, I think, look a bit too clunky, wonky, borderlining ugly, to me at least. And while the general tone is captured perfectly fine from a graphical point of view, I am in a bit of two minds concerning it. The sound effects are what you can expect from a game of this type. You have screeching cars and gun sounds and that kind of stuff, and nothing really stands out positively or negatively. The music is fairly decent all around. It is very thematically appropriate for the type of game, the style of game, and the era in which the game is set in. I don't particularly love the music, but I don't mind listening to it at all. The controls, the game is controlled by using the mouse, and it has a certain sluggishness attached to it, which is rather unfortunate, because while in the interaction with various different still screens this is not a major issue, in action sequences where you have to be fairly accurate, The sluggishness of the controls can hamper your performance, and that can backfire big time. So, I wish the mouse control in this game was significantly sharper than it actually is. Now, the intention of the Cinemaware line of games, of course, was to make you feel that you are playing through a movie. And as such, the sense of being part of a gangster movie sort of works. It has all the classic characters you would expect from a movie of that type. You have the tough guy, you have the wimpy guy, you have the vicious guy, you have the crybaby guy, and all those kind of things. And while it works in a certain way, it can also feel a bit forced. Pinky even can decide to act in various different ways, and you would assume that if you want to reach the best ending or whatever, you just repeat doing what you are doing, and then you will reach the end. But that is definitely not the case, because in order to give this game some sort of longevity, the characters you interact with has a disposition towards you and what you're doing, and that is slightly randomized from game to game, which means that you can't rely on what you're doing is going to work. Which I suppose to a certain point has a certain touch of realism to it, but I also find that it can be incredibly frustrating when you are being caught out doing something that you think would work, but because of some random attribute that's been attached to a certain character, will fail in the process. This game is all about balance, and that can feel very, very ham-fisted at times. Because, for instance, if you spend too much time with your girlfriend Lola, your gang may decide that you are too weak and retire you with bullets. On the other hand, if you don't spend enough time with your girlfriend Lola, she may arrange to have you killed. And that constant need for balancing sort of removes the sense of the player choice having any meaning, because you are more or less pigeonholed down a certain path. I do find this game interesting, but I wish it would have been a bit more tight. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye for now.